Welcome to the Life's Best Medicine podcast, where we are finding hope and healing one episode at a time. No appointment needed, no rubber gloves, and no coping. Just a healthy dose of life lessons to help equip you for this wild journey we call life. Hey everyone, this is a friendly reminder that we are here for entertainment purposes only. We may not even be that entertaining at times, but this is not medical advice. Talk to your doctor, check with your healthcare professionals before making any lifestyle changes or medicine changes. What we're talking about is our clinical experience and what we've seen. And so if you really want our advice, you can consult us. You can actually consult me as a doctor, or you can consult my guest and get all your questions answered. But we can't give free medical advice because we can't pay our bills with that, but we can help to educate you a bit and allow you to think a little bit, and always reach out to your medical professional before making any lifestyle changes. Thank you. Hey everyone, happy January. Believe it or not, we made it to 2024 despite the craziness of the last couple of years. So just want to thank my sponsors for making these podcasts possible. Health Code, Get Health, GETHLTH.com. Great shakes. They helped me get through the holidays, helped some of my family and friends and tons of my patients get through. If you're struggling with not being able to put on weight, if you're one of those rare people in the world, we're using it to help put muscle mass on people. And also for people who are going through surgery, can't eat, this is the healthiest thing you can do to stay nutritionally sound. Also, they have a 20-year shelf life on some metal packs that they're doing for us, those of us who think the economy is going to go crazy and we have to have an emergency kit just in case. So Health Code, they have the vanilla chocolate macadamia. You can make tons of recipes from it, and it is nutritionally sound. I'm recommending it a lot to my seniors who are struggling with memory issues and trying to get them on a low carb ketogenic diet and have sound nutrition. So that's my plug. I love these guys. They're a great company, great people, and they even have a vegan option now for people who are choosing that path of eating. So please get health. And also Keto Mojo, I've been using them a lot. I was away from home and did not bring my Keto Mojo, and I was bummed because I did a couple of longer fasts and changed my diet a little bit, and I wanted to see the results. And guess what? This guy who's sponsored by Keto Mojo left it at home. So I will be grabbing it as soon as I get back home, and we'll be checking my ketones. They're a great company, a lot of great resources there, to get back on track after the holidays. So Keto Mojo, keto-mojo.com. Thank you both for sponsoring this episode, and thank you for your continued support. Here's to 2024, everyone. Hello and welcome back to the Life's Best Medicine podcast. This is a fun one for me, especially. I just moved to Prescott, Arizona, and I was at a barbecue at my neighbor's house. We were sitting around the campfire and we started talking, and she asked what I do. And I said, well, I'm a doc. And then I do some podcasts. She was like, oh my gosh, I have something that you have to see. Someone who changed my life. And I was like, who's this person? I always hear these kind of stories. I go, who is this person? So guess who it is? Rhonda Britten. It's such an honor. Fearless Living. You've written so many books. I can't even say them all here. I don't want to jump on your toes or anything here, but Fearless Living, Fearless Loving, Change Your Life in 30 Days. You just got your master's degree, right? You did your
right.
master's thesis.
I literally finished my master's yesterday.
And congratulations, that's so awesome. And thanks for doing this right after, because you probably want to go and relax and not deal with people right now. So thanks for joining me. And I really wanted my audience to hear about you and your story. It's mind blowing. So I'll let you take over, and I'll be quiet here for a minute. So tell us your story and how it started, your childhood, and how you got to be where you are now.
I was gonna say, what, why am I here? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Really, that's the essence, right? We all want to be more authentic. Most of us want to be more authentic. Most of us want to have our purpose. Most of us want to find passion and feel alive and have meaning in our lives. And for so many people, when I coach them, the very thing that they're supposed to do with their life, their destiny, is based in a challenging decision or a challenging situation in their life, or something that happened that didn't go the way they wanted, right? When life throws us something that is on a scale of 1 to 10, it could be an 8, could be a 6, could be a 10, it could be a 15 out of 1 to 10, right? And so many people, I know for me, I never talked about my past, the story I'm about to tell you. I thought nobody cared. Like most people I coach, I was like, well, nobody wants to hear that stupid story. Nobody wants to hear about what happened to me. Right? Because it's your story. You think it doesn't have value, and you think it's stupid, and you think it's, wimpy, or again, whatever we say about it, right? And one of my biggest moments in my life was actually telling it for the first time. Just somebody actually saying, well, tell me. And I'm like, whoa. And I told it. I had a friend of mine who was a speaking coach, and I was speaking, and she goes, you don't tell your story. I go, yeah, well, no one wants to hear it. She goes, no, trust me, they do. And I'm like, no, they don't. They don't want to hear it. And so she had me do a bet. I did a bet with her. And I said, oh, I'm going to prove to you nobody wants to hear my stupid story. And so I had 2 back-to-back speaking events. I wore the same outfit, gave the same talk, did everything the same, except one I told my story and one I didn't. So the one I didn't, after I spoke, I had like 3, 5 people talking to me, which was the norm. It's like, oh yeah, okay, yes, yeah. And then the next talk I gave, again, same talk, just told my story, and I had a line around the block. And I never understood until I was willing to be that vulnerable, how impactful it can have on other people's lives. So I say that because, yes, I'm about to share my story, but for everyone listening, think about your story and think about what story are you hiding or keeping secret or refusing to admit or don't want anyone to know? Because what if that was the key to your destiny? What if that's the key to your purpose? What if that's the key to you feeling alive and passionate and getting the shackles of fear away? Just saying, Brian, just saying. So with that intro, the story that I'm kind of talking about is something that happened to me when I was 14 years old. And I grew up in a little tiny town in Upper Michigan, 365 inches of snow a year. And it was Father's Day, and my parents had recently separated, getting divorced. And but it's Father's Day, so my father's coming over to take us out to Sunday brunch. And I grew up in that little tiny town. They had 2 restaurants, Douglas Hotel and Big Boy. That's all they had. That's all we had. And my father was going to take us to Douglas House. So I was pretty excited because, got to flirt with all the boys my age. And so I was pretty excited. And my father comes in, right? Come on, girls, because me and my 2 sisters. And my mother is fluffing up her beehive hairdo, putting on her rose-colored lipstick. And my 2 sisters are fighting it out in our one bathroom. Everybody's house where I grew up had only one bathroom. And so I start, following my dad, and my mom, right next to me, right behind me. My sisters are still in the bathroom fighting it out. And as me, my mom, and dad start walking out to the car, my dad says he has to get his coat from his car, his trunk. So he opens his trunk, and I notice that instead of grabbing a coat, he's grabbed a gun. And he starts yelling at my mother, you made me do this, you made me do this. And he fires. And I start screaming, Dad, what are you doing? Dad, what are you doing? And he cocks the gun again, points it at me. And I absolutely 100% thought I was next, 100%. And, the gun's between us. He blinks, I blink. He blinks, I blink. And my mother, who already has a bullet inside her, looks up and sees the gun in my face and screams, no, don't. And that moment, my father realizes my mother's still alive, takes the bullet intended for me, and shoots my mother a second time. And my father cocks the gun again, goes on his knees, puts the gun to his head, and fires. So within a matter of 2 minutes, I was the sole witness of watching my father murder my mother and commit suicide in front of me. Now, I don't know how other people would respond, but this is how I responded. I responded that it was my fault because I was the only one physically able, only one out there that could have kicked my father in the shins or would have grabbed the gun or could have jumped in front of my mother, right? Like I did nothing heroic. I just was like, stop, Dad, stop, right? And I felt completely like it was me, and I had no right to be happy ever again. Because if you let your mother die and you didn't do anything, you just don't get to be happy. So for the next 20 years, I had nightmares every night. I became an alcoholic. I tried to kill myself 3 times. I got 3 DUIs. And it was that third suicide attempt that I realized I'm not good at killing myself, not good, not skilled. And if I'm not meant to die, I better figure out how to live. And I remember leaving the psychiatric ward, because that's what they do when you try to kill yourself 3 times. They eventually put you in a psychiatric ward for evaluation. And I was in my little lockdown room, like it was so small, little tiny cot, little, not even a full bed. And I remember thinking, I've got to figure out another way because I'm not dying. So I get home and I say to myself, I don't know. I don't know I don't know. I don't know what to do. And so I said to myself, well, what did you do in kindergarten, Rhonda? And I was like, well, I had gold stars on a calendar. So I literally went to the store, got a calendar with gold stars. And for 30 days, and I still have the calendar, by the way, I had the calendar, and every time I did something good, anything worthwhile, anything worth living for, I gave myself a gold star. And so I'm talking about little things like got angry and didn't throw anything, right? Didn't get drunk, like went to class, like I'm talking anything where most people would be like, well, yeah, that's just a normal thing. I'm like, well, for me, that was a big deal for me to kind of rein in my victimization, rein in my behavior, rein in my blame, my shame, et cetera, et cetera. So, and after 30 days, I had a calendar filled with gold stars, and I realized I was worth saving. And that is when my life, the huge moment in my life, when my life began to change.
Yeah, and your book I listened to is powerful. I was listening to it in the gym, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was like stunned, right? Sitting there, and your emotions, and just realizing like you're paralyzed with fear. Like we talk about being paralyzed with
Yes,
fear, but you literally were.
yes,
And all these things affected your relationship down the road too, and dealing with this event. And the thing is that being a doctor for 20 years, I never really realized the impact of adverse childhood events and how it shortens our life by 20 years. Chance of cirrhosis goes up, and overdoses, and suicide rate goes up thousands of percents. And you start wondering, like, how did you deal with it at the time? It sounds like you weren't talking about it. You just kind of, you thought everyone would judge you based on what your
yeah.
dad did.
I just sucked it up. I grew up in Upper Michigan, so you just suck it up. I'm 100% finished. You just suck it up and don't talk about it and pretend it didn't happen and la da 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 da. That's how I went through life. I went back to high, obviously I went back to school and got straight A's, and basically split myself in two. Right. And I think that's how most people walk around this world, is they split themselves in two. Is there's the outside person and the inside person, right? The outside person, you might have met me, and if you were perceptive, you would have probably known there was something wrong. But I think I was really good at fooling people until my alcoholism took over, and then of course I started acting out in a much bolder, brash, disempowering way. But for most of the time, I think, when people hear my story that grew up with me, that were around at that time, they always go, I never knew. I go, yeah, of course you didn't, because I'm fine. I'm fine. Nothing's wrong with me. And this, and I'll say two things. One is, part of that was my way to deal with it, because I didn't have any other tools, right? I didn't know how else to deal with it, right? And I think that's the thing. Most people, we're not trained. We're not talked. It's not talked about. I mean, even when we see tragedy on TV, um, for most people, processing tragedy doesn't happen for 2, 5, 8, 12 years, because you just don't even have the nervous system, right? You just don't even have the capacity to kind of relive it or talk about it, because it's just you're too tender, you're too fragile, right? And it takes a willingness to see yourself differently, and forgive yourself, forgive the perpetrators, forgive my father, forgive my mother, which was harder, by the way, and then forgive myself for not saving them. And people tell me all the time, well, but it's not your fault, you were only 14. It's like, but that doesn't matter, because when you're 14 or 12 or 8 and you have an ability to make a difference, you actually think you do in that moment, right? And you grow up believing you do. So telling a 14-year-old, well, you were only 14. It's like, yes, I understand that, but I actually believed that I could have made a difference and I didn't, you know?
Yeah, and yeah, a couple things. One thing, the first thing that came to my mind is, what was it? Tell me about the alcohol. Did it just slowly creep up on you? You just tasted and liked it, and then, or was it covering up your pain and that allowed you to, or maybe let you come out of your shell a little bit?
I think alcohol allowed me to feel. So I didn't drink. So this happened at 14. I didn't start drinking until I was my senior party of my senior year in high school. So the last day of school, I never drank. Everybody else was drinking. I wasn't, because I was like, I'm not drinking. And then somebody handed me a lime vodka with 7 Up. And you know what? That tasted really good. And so then I went to college, and everybody drank, and everybody almost overdrank. So I don't think that I was I'm sure I was worse than many people, but I wasn't. It wasn't like Rhonda
But
has a problem
everyone
when
was doing
everybody
it.
else, right?
Yeah, it's a
Everybody was
culture.
doing it, right?
Yeah.
And so it was only after I graduated from college, when other people were getting on with their lives, right, and building relationships, where my drinking basically, I'll just say, it allowed me to feel. So it allowed me to get angry. I never allowed myself to get angry, because anger to me was my father. And when I was growing up, people would say, "You're just like your father." Well, now my father murdered my mother, so I don't want to, like, what, that's not good,
Yeah.
right? So I thought anger. I thought if I got angry, I was capable of doing anything, right? Like, what if I could kill? What if I could do something horrific, right? So I just stuffed all the pain, the hurt, the shame, the guilt, all of it, just stuffed it down. And when I drank, well, I didn't keep it in anymore. I got angry. I got bitter. So I was not like a fun drunk. I was I don't want to say mean drunk, but I was a vocal drunk and on some
Well,
level that was probably served me on some level, right?
what allowed you to overcome your inhibition so you could talk about it, and so the hard part is other people are like, they're trying to have fun, and then all these things come out, and it's hard, right? It's a hard thing that.
Oh yeah, people are like looking at me like, she's crazy, right? She's a crazy person. But yeah, so drinking, so I my life dramatically changed when I quit drinking, right? It because now I could think clearly. Now I had to own my responsibility. I had to own my behavior. And before then, I didn't have to, because I was drinking. Well, I was just drunk, I forget about it. But now when you're sober, it's like, seeing
and
yourself through those clear lenses is tough.
and I want to get back to how you got sober and what the instigation was for that. But first, I wanted to ask you, when you said it was harder to forgive your mom than your dad, why was that?
Well, for me, my father was clearly the bad guy, right? He's the one that took the gun. He's the one that shot my mother twice, shot himself, right? Put the gun in my face. So it was a clear perpetrator. He is the bad guy. And surprisingly, he was easier to forgive than my mother. My mother was the victim, right? She was the one that was murdered. And when I kept my mother on a pedestal and didn't look at her as a woman who was desperate for love, who stayed with my father because she was scared to leave, so all the ways that she lived in fear, right? All the decisions she made that actually hurt and harmed me. I had to take my mother off the pedestal, to see her as a woman who was afraid to be alone, a woman who was, had to have a husband to help her pay the bills, have 3 kids. My mother had tried to leave my father earlier, and her father, my grandfather, basically was like, no one gets divorced. And back then, you listen to your dad, right? And so she stayed married to my dad's, right? And so then other things happened in my life that you can imagine. And, she didn't keep me safe, right? So I had to take her off the pedestal so I could actually see her for who she was. Again, not blame her, in order to actually see me and my innocence, right? If I could look at my mother with clear eyes and be like, oh yeah, that was a really, yeah, that was not that, no, mom should have done that. And I love her anyway, and I see why she did it because she was afraid A, B, and C, then I could look at myself and go, oh, I made some really poor choices in my life. I made some really bad decisions, and I did them for reasons too, right? We don't make bad decisions for no reasons, right? All of us are making poor decisions, avoiding decisions, ignoring decisions, denying decisions uh, for a reason. And most of us don't take the time to actually investigate. We just blame ourselves and shame ourselves and think, oh, I'm just a bad person, that's why I did that. No, that's not why you did it. You did it because you were afraid of something. And because fear isn't talked about in an impactful, powerful way in most families and in most cultures and most communities, et cetera, we're just taught to blame ourselves. So until I could take my mother off the pedestal and see her innocence in the midst of all of this and see how she played a part, again, she's not at fault for my father killing her, but just see where they did the dance. That allowed me to then finally forgive myself for being frozen and unable to jump in front of my mother or grab the gun from my father. So I think that's the thing that we do is we keep somebody on a pedestal, or we have one bad guy, and whether it's our mate or our kids or it's their fault, it takes away our sense of responsibility, and it takes our power, takes away our power, personal power. And we think that we're, good and evil, right? Bad and good. But that's not how life works. That's not actually how it is. And we want to have it black and white, but black and white never gets us healthy, never gets us healed.
Yeah, and then that's the hard thing. As part of your book, you were saying, okay, find people who are your role models, pick 3 role models to. And it's funny because I'm on Twitter a fair amount, and when I would post something like a quote by Martin Luther King, for instance, someone would say, well, he had affairs on his wife and all these. How could you quote someone like that? And I'm like, who in the heck can I quote who lived a
That's
perfect
right.
life? Yeah, right.
That's right. That's right.
Maybe
Right. That's
Jesus,
right.
but the rest of us are kind of stuck because we all have our humanity. So
Right.
it's amazing, and all these things that the triggers were holding resentment against your mom. Someone reminds you of mom, and then you don't like that person even though they haven't done
Right.
anything to you,
Right.
and how much the psychology affects us.
Yeah, I mean, just because Martin Luther King had affairs, yes, it's documented, well known that he had affairs, but he also literally changed the United States. So if we can't live our purpose and be flawed, then none of us can live our purpose. And it's actually I hate to get political, but it's one of the challenges that we're having in politics today, because it's so judged. Everybody's so judged that you can't have had any flaws in college or afterwards or business or done anything, because it's like, oh, you're evil. It's like, yeah, well, I was stupid back then. I was fearful back then. I mean, if people look at me and go, oh, Rhonda, don't listen to her, she used to be an alcoholic. It's like, well, yeah, don't listen to the alcoholic version of me. Don't do that, right? Listen to the one, if you resonate with me, that has healed that and gone beyond that and has grown beyond that, right? But yeah, if we all have to keep paying for our past, we will never get healed and we'll never move forward. And I see that all the time. And I mean, all my clients, my students, I see it all the time. I go, well, blah, blah, blah. And they go, yes, but I did that one thing. And it's like, okay, so what? But they want to keep paying the cost, right? They want to keep paying. Just like for me, for 20 years, I didn't allow myself to be happy because I didn't think I had a right to be happy. Everybody else is doing that in their own way. Well, I can't have a good relationship because my father killed my mother, right? Well, yes, I can. I can have a healthy relationship. I just have to do the work in order to know how to do that, right? And most of us are not taught that level of responsibility. And we're just taught like, well, that bad thing happened to you and therefore you're not responsible. It's like, no, you after 18, you're responsible, for how you respond. Or once you wake up, right? Once you hear something, it's your responsibility.
Yeah, and I think how about your sister? Like, how does she have the same issues as you, or she had a little different view of things?
Well, I have two sisters, one older and one younger, and both my sisters, just like any family, the family dynamic is different for my older sister versus my younger sister. They also didn't see it. So, seeing it brings a whole new dimension to it, right? And my little sister, my younger sister Linda, was deeply loved by my father, and so
Yeah, you said
she,
that.
the only one that was loved by my father, and so she still like thinks my dad's, like she just cuts that whole part out and just
It's how he treated her, and she saw it
it's
that way, right?
that's right. And so I mean, we talked about it when I was writing my first book, Fearless Living, when I was going to tell my story for the first time uh, to a larger audience. And, she said she was never afraid that dad was going to kill her, of course, because I lived with that daily. I lived with my dad going to kill me daily.
So
And
was there a lot of instability before this episode? So he was unstable. Like when you look back, when
towards
you were like,
me,
yeah,
it was really focused on me. Um, and sometimes caregivers, parents, authority figures choose one person, or sometimes they do it to everybody, right? My father did it to me, and so he did nothing to Linda. Linda was like, oh, I love her. So she is married to a man that worships her just like my dad worshipped her. Like it's literally like dad worshipped you and now you have a husband. I mean, it's just amazing, right?
it's
It's
amazing.
just
Yeah.
it's amazing. But her husband worships her and just loves her and just, you know, and my older sister Cindy was treated. I'm going to step back for a minute. One of my mom's best friends told us years later, after my parents died, this is like maybe 20 years later, that my father used to treat my older sister Cindy like the maid, like Cinderella. Okay. Used to treat me, every time he looked at me with disgust in his eyes. And my little sister was his, oh, right. So Cindy was basically treated like the maid, like, she wasn't abused in any way. She wasn't, but it was not loving. It just was, kind of matter of fact.
Indifferent. And then he had
Different.
animosity towards you
Yes.
and worship
Yes.
your younger sister. It's just amazing.
Yes.
It's just
Yes.
amazing how one person can, there's certain things that have amazed me in life. And, two people in the same fox pit, right? I'm
Yeah.
losing my mind.
Yeah. I get
Uh,
it.
and then one goes home and goes to work like nothing happened. The other one
That's right.
is on drugs and alcohol the rest of their life, and
That's
have
right.
these struggles. And it's amazing how it's this mindset that people have and how they perceive the same event.
Well, it is that, and going back to what you said earlier, it's not because the second person is more flawed. It's that the second person doesn't have the support, or didn't learn the skills, or wasn't extremely loved, or right, like people that are addicts, alcoholics, etc. I mean, it's been said for decades that they're highly sensitive people, right? Like it's our level of empathy is so great that we feel, compared to, again, this is just what they say, right? Um, that we feel deeply, and we're more attuned to people. And so the pain feels greater, right? Because the person that gets out of that foxhole and goes and nothing happens to them may be a narcissist, right? Maybe as cold as ice, maybe taught that you got to take care of yourself and nobody else, right? Like we don't know that came from a healthy place, right? We don't know that's healthy. So it's really about looking beyond, yes, behavior is important to look at, but it's also looking beyond behavior and going, where is the happiness? Where is the purpose? Where is the passion? Where is the aliveness? Where is the meaning? Where is the peace? I remember when I was younger, I would poo-poo peace of mind. I was like, peace of mind, whatever. And now I get that peace of mind is everything. So if I'm living my values, if I'm in alignment with God, if I'm A, B, or C, I have peace. Even if life sucks right now, right? Even if it's hard, I have peace. And so I do believe that some people cultivate the ability to have peace and live in the midst of turmoil, but can keep their center. And other people don't feel like I didn't feel. I didn't feel. And I would have been like that guy in the foxhole. I would have gotten out and been fine. Right. And then maybe I would have had a breakup because, I didn't start getting worse until I had a breakup that I can see very clearly now was really when my parents died to me. Right. So for like 7 years, I was able to kind of suck it up, and then had this really bad breakup. And all of a sudden that opened up that whole wound that I'd been covering up. Right. So So I think we have to have some, do you have peace of mind? Do you have meaning? Do you have close connections? Do you feel part of the world? Do you feel connected to yourself? Do you know who you are? Are you authentic? All these things determine our level of sovereignty, right? Our level of sovereignty and our level of empowering ourselves in choices.
Yeah, I think that's something. I can meet a patient in the first couple of minutes. I know where they're coming from, if they're depressed, sad, happy. I mean, you just sense that. And so I always ask my patients. So anyone who's going to be my patient, you're getting you can study for this. But I ask people, hey, so what do you do for fun? And so
Mm-hmm.
many people blank stare back at me and think, fun? I'm trying to
Yeah.
survive right now. Like fun? I'm working, 18-hour days. I'm crazy. And so
Yeah.
it's amazing how many people are just surviving life, right? And what you're talking about with
Well, yeah.
fearless living is how many people stay in a bad situation because they're fearful of leaving. Like for my story is 18 years in standard practice. I was working 16, 18-hour days, waking up at 4 in the morning, getting home at 9 at night. I love my wife and kids, but I'm never there. And that's where I want to be. I'm like, what is wrong with me? What am I doing here? And because I really wanted to help people, but then you realize that comes at a cost and an expense to you and your personal life and friends who I haven't talked to for 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So at some point, but the fear of saying I'm jumping ship from where I'm making good money to, okay, this may not work and it may work. But at some
That's
point,
right.
you have to overcome that fear to say, okay, I'm taking that step in faith. Okay, God's got my back, or I have enough um, education that I can make this
Mm-hmm.
happen, or
Mm-hmm.
trusting that and believing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I think that's the thing, is that's what you bring out in your book too, is like, okay, what's your purpose in life? What do you want to do with your life? Don't sit there and be miserable. Go, oh, I can't do this because my husband won't let me work,
Mm-hmm.
or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Or my mother told me I was no good, or, my boyfriend, I can't tell you how many stories of people are like, well, I can't, I had that bad breakup in college and therefore I'll never,
I'll never love someone
I
again.
never love someone again. I
Yeah.
actually know a young man who's literally still in his teens. I'm not joking, still in his teens. And he was, madly in love with somebody, a junior high, early high school. And they broke up. And he truly believes, he's a young man, like 17, 18 years old. And he believes that he will never love again. Like he literally believes that. And, at hopefully that will change as he goes out into the world and realizes. But, we make such rigid decisions based on one event in our life. And then we, you put it everywhere, put it everywhere, on every decision, on every relationship, on everything, right? So that's a choice we're making. And it doesn't feel like a choice. I think that's the really important thing. When you're in the state that, that I was in, it didn't feel like I was doing this. It didn't feel like I had choice. It didn't feel like I had choice. I felt like I had to do this. And, so it's not about how you feel. It's about, do you like the way your life is looking? Do you like the results you're getting? Do you like how you are with people and yourself? And if the answer is no, I really don't care about how you feel, like, oh, I'm scared, I'm not scared, or I'm nervous, or it doesn't matter. It's like, you've got to decide, I'm willing to get nervous, I'm willing to be vulnerable, I'm willing to fail, I'm willing to A, B, or C in order to have a different type of life. I'm willing to change my mind, right? And so many people are not willing to change their mind.
Yeah, it's amazing. In medicine, I see that. My favorite doctors, my friends who are docs, they may have said one thing 5 years ago. They go, we were wrong, and they were able to change course. In the low
That's
carb
right.
world, Professor Noakes, Gary Fetke, these guys stood up and said, "Wait, we can't be eating cereal and junk food all the time. This isn't good for you." And then the medical board went after them, and they went through 3 years of trials and crazy stuff. And ultimately, they were vindicated. But they couldn't sit back, and both of them were told, "Hey, just be quiet and do it in your own clinic, and don't talk publicly about this, and we'll
Yeah.
let it go."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they were going up against big pharma on one side and big
Yeah.
food on the other side, and they're like, "Oh, you eat whatever you want, and we could shoot you up with drugs to make you better. You can
Yeah.
pick Coke all day, and then just exercise more." Those kind of things, and when you stand up to the system, it's really a challenge, and it's fear invoking. Like the last 3 years as being a
Sure.
doctor,
Sure.
there was a lot of coercion, a lot of bad stuff that happened in medicine, and now attorneys are now respected more than as doctors, right? We used to be like a little bit more respected, but now no one trusts anymore because they're like, wait a minute, you told me to do stuff that you didn't know the truth to. And so it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing in life of being able to say, yeah, I was wrong. We didn't have to, you don't have to eat
Well,
this certain
yeah,
way.
with all the information I had, I made the best choice. And if I had that same information today, I would still make that same choice. right? And it's like the information grew, the stats grew, we have new tools. I see now, oh, we could do A, B, and C. But so it's all about that. It is about taking ultimate responsibility and recognizing that. I know it's a cliche, but it's like you really did the best you could with what you had, with what you knew, right? That's true for all of us. Even in my alcoholic state, I did the best I did with what I knew. I mean, that's what I knew, right? So I'm not going to sit there, for years I shamed myself, but now I don't shame myself because it's like literally that's all I knew. I didn't know how to do anything different. I might have read a book and had information that it could be different, but I didn't know how to do that. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I am who I am today is because I remember reading all those books saying like, oh, love yourself, love yourself. And I'd be like, well, how do you do that? How do you love yourself? How exactly do you do that? Right? Because you can read books all day long and they'll tell you exactly, oh, love yourself and, live your purpose and come on, you can do it. But nobody tells you how. Right. And so I'm a big how girl. Like I literally work with my clients and students like this little step to this little step, if that's what's needed, because that's the moment of change. It's not, climbing the mountain on the top. It's literally, hey, do you have shoes on? Do you have the right shoes on? Like that's going to make the difference of being able to climb that mountain.
And enjoying the journey along the way, because a lot of people think they're not going to be happy until they get to the top of the mountain. Instead of saying, "Oh, let's stop and look," "Oh, I've come a far way." Look,
Yeah.
those kind of things that you don't realize, that enjoying the
Yeah.
moment sometimes, because we're like, I won't be happy until I get this promotion. Then you don't get the promotion, you're not happy, right? Or you're
Yeah, that's
drinking,
right.
and I think the other thing that came out in your book too is looking at your dad's upbringing and his life, and you go, okay, I can understand where they're coming from based on what they experienced as a child too, right?
Yeah, I mean, look at, one of my core principles is, and one thing that I teach my coaches, so I train coaches, and the number one coach skill that I teach that nobody else teaches is uh, speak as if they're innocent. Can you see your client's innocence? And when I say that in a room full of coaches, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I can do that." And then I ask them a few more questions, and it's like, "Oh no, I'm not doing that." Because yeah, sure, I don't have to judge my client. It's like, okay, so they tell you they go against something of your own principles and values, and you're good with that. Like you're okay, right? They say something that you staunchly don't believe in. Is that okay? Are you going to help them do something that you don't believe in? Well, unless it's, killing somebody, that's your job as their coach, right? Your job is not to judge, determine, etc. But I see I see my opportunity as a coach is to watch their soul unfold. That's my job, is to help them think better, make better decisions, trust themselves better, love themselves more, et cetera, et cetera. And I use the fodder of their life to help them. So, and my number one job is to see their innocence. So the way I speak to them, the way I coach them is all through the lens that they did nothing wrong, ever. Right. And could they have made better decisions? Sure. But it wasn't wrong because they only had what they had. Right. And everyone's running around afraid. So this is my philosophy. If I can, I know that's what helped heal me, having somebody see my innocence and that I wasn't at fault, right? That I'm not, oh, you're not a horrible person because you drank, for the years you did and, drove drunk and got 3 DUIs and, it's like, oh no, you can see beyond mine. Well, I see beyond yours. If we do that for each other, we'd live in a different world.
Yeah, and give each other grace too, and just go, okay, I've blown it too. I've noticed that I do small groups with my patients, and we're 20 people on there maybe,
Yeah.
and someone says, I suck this week. I have been eating crappy, and I'm doing everything wrong. I get pissed off at
Yeah.
my husband, whatever it is, and they're just real.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, everyone else becomes real, and everyone's like,
That's
oh my
right.
gosh,
That's right.
2 weeks ago I was in the same boat, and then the person
Yeah.
doesn't feel so bad that they're the only loser, right? We all think we're
That's
the only
right.
one, especially men, because we don't want to talk about where we're struggling, and then you turn into a train wreck because you never really express like, oh, I'm having concerns about this. or having safe people like you talk about that you can say, I'm going to bounce this off to you. I'm going to vent with this person and try to
Yeah.
not complaining. That's a great point you make too, is about complaining. And I love that part of your book too, because, it will happen. You'll be at a party with a bunch of guys and we'll stand around our wives are in the other room and someone will say, my wife does this, she does all the time. And they're all complaining. Then they get around me. I'm like, man, I'm blessed, man. I don't have anything to say. I can't contribute. Then all of a sudden the conversation changes and guys go,
Right.
yeah, my wife's pretty good too. And then, yeah, once they really, it's easy to really, I mean, we can really focus on the bad parts of someone rather than saying, oh, overall, this is a great thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Big
I,
difference.
I have to ask you, like, when you were 14, 15, 16, going through high school in the community, was it the elephant in the room that no one talked about, or did people like try
Oh,
to,
oh no, nobody talked about it. No. Mm-mm,
yeah,
mm-mm, mm-mm. And some people weren't allowed to play with me anymore or hang out with me anymore because I was from one of those families. Right now, I became one of those families.
yeah, you became a
So
pariah for doing nothing wrong?
yeah, exactly. Like I always felt like I was on display, right? Like I always felt like somebody was judging me or staring at me or whispering about me or, so when I went away to college, um, I was like, oh, I'm going to be, oh my God, no one's going to know me. It's going to be so great. Right. But you take yourself with you. Right. And so that's when I started drinking in college. And then after college, I moved to LA and I was like, nobody's going to know me. A fresh start. I can do it again. I'm going to start over. Right. And again, took myself with me, so it was only when I moved to Los Angeles and I tried to run from myself, 2 times, and I wasn't leaving myself behind, kind of when I had to face myself, which was very difficult, very humbling. And I think that's the one thing is the level of humility and the level of vulnerability that you have to be willing to experience in order to really see your innocence. Because I think for most people, seeing your innocence means, oh, then I have to kind of look at my past and admit I did that, right? Like look at all my crap I did. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to look. I don't want to look. But if you look and can see your innocence, then everything changes. So a lot of people, when they first start changing their lives, on one hand, it's exciting because it's like all of a sudden this new energy and this new vitality and this new possibilities. But on the other hand, all your past quote unquote mistakes, the things that you wish you didn't do, you see them with more clarity. And on one hand, you can beat yourself up, or on the other hand, you can just love yourself more.
And your experience gives you that experience to talk to someone else who's been through it. Like no one is, I've never had struggles with alcohol, so I can't say, oh, I know exactly what you feel like. But you go, look, here's what my life was. I had DUIs, I did all this crazy stuff. And being able to share it, if you hold that in your whole life, it just destroys you because you think
Yeah.
you're not worthy. And like you said, just even if it's something simple like sticking a gold star whenever you do something great. And with my patient, I go journal how you feel, and then sometimes a month or two later, they look back and go, oh my gosh, I was so depressed and anxious and stressed out all the time. But when they get their nutrition right, they get their lifestyle right, they
Yes,
start exercising and
that's
sleeping
right.
and not hating the world and not being pissed at dad the rest of their life, they realize like, oh, I feel better. Things are going better. And they can look back
Yeah.
and it's amazing.
I have to say that nutrition and sleep and water and all those lovely things that you do um, completely change a person's mindset, right? Like they think that they're fundamentally something's wrong with them, right? Like I'm depressed. I'm just a depressed person. It's like, yeah, and if you got your food right, would you be? Now again, some people would be. There are a certain percentage that obviously they would be, but I know for me, the healthier, the cleaner I eat, I should say, the cleaner I eat, the happier I just am. It's really shocking. I'll never forget the first time I really, really realized that. I mean, obviously that happened when I got sober, but I wasn't as smart and more as educated. But as I've eaten cleaner through different times in my life, I am naturally happier when I'm eating clean without me doing anything else but eating clean. I just feel this lightness. I feel this connection. I feel this peace. So I think some people that are dealing with the psychological work, which again is important, it's really like, no, get your food together. And I wonder how much psychological stuff you'll still have.
Yeah, and that's the thing that we deal with, right? We're trying to, like, someone's trying to lose weight, we're trying to get healthier, trying to get our diabetes under control. Then we're moving along, and Tro, who I do another podcast with, he's in New York, I'm in California. We were talking about people overcoming alcohol abuse, drug abuse, depression, anxiety, stress by changing their diet. They go, I don't
That's right.
crave alcohol anymore. And a lot of times when you lower that overall stress, like if your stress relief was alcohol at the time, so you have to find something else to replace that when you're stressed out. Or how do you deal with it? And once you get your brain chemistry right, we see a lot of times where people say, yeah, I really don't need a drink. I really don't need
That's
to eat
right.
cookies so much. And once you get
That's
that
right.
dopamine and serotonin levels balanced out, and you do a great job of talking about these kind of things, it's just remarkable. And as a matter of fact, the sad part is we have a podcast with over 300 episodes, and episode 11 we talked about addiction and how eating on cutting out the processed food and sugars and all that stuff as much as
Hmm.
possible makes a huge difference. And we had
Yes.
doctors attacking us for 30 days saying you guys should lose your license for even saying literally. I couldn't believe it. the other
Right.
the
I
other time
know.
I got
Yeah.
attacked was during the worst lockdowns during COVID. I said, keep the hope, keep the faith, things will get better. It will get better.
Hmm.
It's not gonna
Hmm.
be like this, Reverend. People will say, "How
Yeah.
dare you say that? You're giving people false hope." It's always gonna be like this. This is our new. We're never gonna see each other's face again. I was like, I don't think so, right? And I
Yeah.
was right, so I'll take that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I think after all you've been through, and I think the big thing as a doc, we sometimes the cure is worse than the disease, right? So I was watching during lockdowns and I saw people come with depression, anxiety, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, suicide attempts, divorces. And because being locked down, you can't work, financial stress, you can't, your kids are stuck in the house, they're doing stuff and the social ramifications of that. And also living in fear that if you go outside, you're going to die. If you breathe, if
Yeah.
you see
Yeah.
that fear that's been instilled in people has been, and when I read your book, that's how I was thinking about is, gosh, how fear can make you say, okay, let me look at my risk and benefits. What's the odds of me dying if I get this thing? Or
Hmm.
what are the
Hmm.
costs to being ultra safe and hiding under your bed for 3 years?
Hmm. Hmm.
What's your
Yeah.
what's your take on that?
Well, I mean, again, during COVID, we watched it unfold, right? Just like you said earlier about we don't have enough information. So in the beginning, it was natural, right, to be scared, right? It's natural because nobody knew anything. Nobody did.
Yes.
And, and then you get to take your power back and go, okay, what am I willing to risk? What is my risk? And then, of course, we had more information, whether you take the vaccine, don't take the vaccine, whether you wear a mask, not wear a mask, right? You have personal choice. And you also have to think of your community because that's the other thing about COVID. What I found fascinating is how many people like stood on the pulpit and were like, it's your personal choice. It's like, well, yeah, but it's a communal disease. So I don't know about that. I'm not sure about that. I don't know where's the line, right? And you have to figure out that line for yourself, and your community has to figure out that line for themselves. So, yeah, I mean, I think COVID was uh, it was a huge opportunity for us to all be in our lives and have fewer distractions on some level because you didn't have to go out, right? You didn't have to get in the car, you didn't have to, right? And really see how we respond to stress. I mean, I personally see so many. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of downfalls to COVID. I'm not saying I wish COVID on anybody or wish it happened again, but there also were so many benefits. Right? Like so many people, before COVID, um, people would say, well, I don't want to do a online call. I want to just do it in person. I don't want to, all their thing was I don't know the computer. I don't understand the computer. I don't know. And now everybody can get on a Zoom call.
Yeah, that's
So
one thing that's benefited that we could do
yeah,
this Zoom. You don't have to come to my house and be
yeah,
interviewed and set
yeah,
up mics and cameras and all that. Yeah, that's a huge
yeah,
thing. And then in medicine, that's become a huge. A lot of people go, I don't want to come into the office. I don't want to be
that's right.
exposed to stuff. And
That's right.
so it
That's
changed
right.
a lot.
That's right. It changed a lot of people's mind that really probably would not have changed if we didn't have something that dramatic happen. Now,
Hmm.
again, do I wish it happens again? No. And when I look at the last three years, I just think, okay, yes, what did it teach in me? What did I learn from that experience? Who am I now afterwards? And who do I want? What do I want to take from that experience and bring forward? And for me, it's just a level of compassion, another level of compassion, another level of empathy, another level of understanding, another level of inclusion.
And
So,
I think you can identify more like going to the suicide attempts. Were you ready to die? Like you were done with this world? Was that it? Or did you need attention? What do you think? Like, what did you just lose all hope? Like, what was it
well,
that brought you to that point to say, okay, this is it. I'm ending it.
well, I'll say a couple things because it was kind of both of those things. One is, um, I I always make a joke that, some people don't think of suicide unless they've thought of everything else, right? Like, gotta think of it. I think of, like, if I break a nail, I go, I might as well kill myself. Like, that's my first thought, right? And so I am just used to thinking about suicide as a natural response to stress, right? And while some people, like I said, it's their last choice, it kind of is my first choice, you know? And then I go, yeah, but do you want to? No, I don't. Okay, well then let's go to another choice, right? And that's still on some level today, even, but now it just takes a lot more for me to go there. But, I have, my father killed himself. Um, there are other people in my life that are important to me that killed myself. So suicide is kind of in my realm, right? So the action when I actually did it was in a moment of rage, upset. So each time I did it, it was because I was like, it's over, I'm done. This is never going to
Yeah, too much
work.
effort, too much effort, too much.
Too much
Like there's no
effort.
hope. Nothing's gonna get better. I'm gonna
Right.
be stuck here.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'd been drinking all 3 times, right, which makes you more susceptible.
Mhm.
Um, but I think that's like one of the things. I'm writing my memoir right now about my dark night and dark night of the soul I had. And part of it is our culture getting comfortable with just the concept of suicide and just even being able to talk about it, so that if you are feeling that way, you can actually talk about it, because it's still in so many families a stigma, right? Like, oh my God, and if it's a stigma, then I can't share with you that I'm feeling that way,
Mhm.
right? Then I have to hide it and pretend I'm better than I am, that I'm fine. But if we can make our responses to mental illness, to stress, to A, B, or C, that it's just being human, that most people at some point in their life feel some sort of version of suicidal. It may not be much. It might just be like, oh, I don't know if I want to live anymore. But most of us have had some thought like that over their lifetime.
If you don't wake up tomorrow, it's okay. If you go off the road, all right, whatever,
Yeah, yeah,
people have those
exactly.
kind of,
Just like I'm fine to die, right? Like,
yeah.
but if we can talk about it and actually, what I say to myself is, when it comes up for me, I just go, well, yeah, but do you want to? I go, no, I actually want to live. It's like, okay, you want to live? Great, let's figure out a way to live. Um, but many people think, like, I had the thought, that must mean I'm supposed to do it, or I have to do it, or I'm a horrible person because I want to do it, or I shouldn't think that thought, or what. They judge themselves for even having the thought. And when I have the thought, I know I immediately have to get into care for myself mode, because I can't let that's a slippery slope.
Mhm.
So if you have a thought of suicide, you can't stuff that. You've got to face it, and you've got to get support, whatever that looks like for you. But I have an agreement with my best friend to this day that if I'm feeling suicidal no matter how little, like 1%, I call my best friend and go, okay, I'm feeling like I want to kill myself. Again, we both know I'm not going to. We both know I don't want to. But if the thought goes through my head, I say it out loud, because then I know that I won't. If I pretend
You
that
take
I'm
the
not
power
going
out
to,
of it.
yeah, that's right. Take the power out of it. And so if we just get comfortable, like, okay, yeah, I was an alcoholic. That's right. I tried to kill myself 3 times. I had 3 DUIs. I went to jail. I was in jail for supposed to be 30 days. Was there for 7, because they were like, it's your first time. Get out of here. But yeah, I did all those things.
Yeah, you're a survivor, you're a survivor. You've been through a lot and you keep plugging and you keep helping people. And so what happens? You start getting professional success. You end up on Oprah and you're going around being on, reality TV shows and things like that. How did that affect you?
Well, that was just a complete honor, because
Did it ever go to your head where you go, I'm all that now? Or it was always like, it was always looking at the opportunity to reach out that you can reach more of an audience?
yeah, I mean, all I focus on is how many people can I support, right? How many people can hear my voice? How many people can, in my voice, because people are going to listen to your voice, Brian. Some are going to listen to my voice, and you're going to attract certain people, and I'm going to attract certain people. And if I'm not sharing or talking or teaching or writing, then the people who are looking for somebody like me may not find that person, right? Just like you. people want somebody like you, and you're here for the people that need somebody like you, because somebody like, some of my students wouldn't go to you and some of your patients wouldn't come to me, right? It's just that's the nature, right?
You
And we
find someone who
all
you connect with, and like
that's right.
just last week, someone said, "I don't like this trainer. He was a jerk to me." And I asked the lady, "Go, how was your experience?" "Oh, he's great. He's such a nice person." I was like,
Right. Exactly.
"The same
Exactly.
person, isn't it?" But
Exactly. Exactly.
sometimes it's just a personality thing, and different approaches. Someone wants someone to yell at them and jump up and down.
That's right.
Sometimes people want a coach who just listens and helps them. And so your book is full of so many great lessons. I mean, I wish we can have 7 hours to talk about it, because people just get the book and read it. Trust me on this one. This is a good one. Um,
Fearless
you know,
living. Fearless living.
Fearless Living. Yeah, that's I haven't got to the other ones yet, but I got through Fearless Living. And it's just amazing. So many of the things you're talking about is writing down, the hurts, and even burning the letter. You don't have to give it to the person, but just getting it out and letting it out, and dealing with it. So many people are
Yeah.
wounded. I'm shocked, because I have people in their 70s and 80s who are super wounded by their parents still. And you go,
Yes.
gosh, or not having parents that love them or hug them. And there's so many
Yes.
studies on this that are just, and the body keeps the score. I don't know if you ever read that book, but
Yes. Of course.
seeing how just not having dad loving you and holding you, and making you be worthy, and how that
That's right.
makes you go into bad relationships trying to seek that. And then we repeat
That's
these
right.
cycles until we figure it out, for ourselves, and break it for our family or kids or relatives.
That's right. That's right.
So
And we
I've
all
that.
and we all can be, we all can live our destiny. We all can decide to become true to ourselves. We can all decide that today. Not It's not as easy as that decision, but that decision starts us on a new path. And then we just have to have the courage to be vulnerable, and have the humility enough to go, I can't do this alone. I can't, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to get out of my own way. I don't know how to A, B, or C. Well, there's somebody out there that knows how. And so find them, seek them, and start taking new action. Start deciding to see yourself differently than you already do.
And I like you're talking about looking at, like, sometimes we think we want to do something, and you'll talk to us and go, "That's not what you want to do. This is
Yeah,
where your passion is,
exactly.
over here." And once they
That's right.
realize that, and they get on that passion, once you have a passion for something, you just love, like what I do now. I love it. I can't wait to go to work. I love my patients. I have
Yeah.
fun. It's not like, okay, there's 300 people this today. We're gonna have to. How fast can I get through these people? Right?
Yeah,
The
that's right.
8-minute visits and crazy stuff like that, it just doesn't
That's
work.
right.
So what you're doing is so, I mean, the mental part of it, and the coaching, and giving people life skills so they can get through life and navigate it. Something that they
Right.
might have tried to committing suicide a year ago. Now they go, okay, I can manage this. That's
That's
an
right.
amazing
That's
gift that
right.
you have to give people.
Well, thank you. I
And
love
I've,
it. I feel so honored that I get to do this. So thank you.
yeah, and I have to ask you, what's life's best medicine for you when you go, okay, when things suck right now, or you're going through hard times,
Mm.
where do you find your peace? Where do you find your, like, for Rhonda, what is life's best medicine? Since that's this podcast, right? I'm gonna give you a
Yeah,
minute.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Life's best medicine. Well, life's best medicine is a good friend. That's for sure. My BFF, my best friend. Um, I sometimes think that, uh, she's the reason that I'm who I am today, right? Just having that one person in your life who just believes in you and thinks you're awesome, even though, you're friends, you fight, you disagree, you don't agree on everything. We have very different uh, belief systems, etc. But we do agree on one thing, that we want to support each other to become who we were born to be, right? To live our life as soul intended. And the other thing, of course, is, besides the human part of it, which is a BFF or a good friend. And again, you may or may not have a good friend, but get a coach, get a therapist, get a doctor, right? Get somebody that you can build a connection with, because you won't feel alone. Because I know for me, I just always felt alone. And I think that's true for most people. They just feel alone. But the minute you don't feel alone, then life becomes more possible. The life you want becomes more possible. The other thing, of course, is I'm a God girl. So I'm all about the God. So God, Marta, those two things. Got
I
those
think,
two things?
yeah, for me too. I lean on faith and go, okay, God, we're gonna get through this. Let's figure it out. I'm not gonna be stressed out. I've, been in situations in the third world with machine guns pointed at me, like, okay, I don't think this is my end. I'm not gonna worry about it too much, right? But there's so many people who have these imagined stresses in life, and all this worry, what people are gonna think. And I'm telling you, like what you said at the beginning was authenticity. When you say, look, I'm gonna tell you who I am. Here's the warts. Here's the scars.
That's
Here's
right.
my
That's
battle
right.
wounds, and not try to hide it from everyone. So many people go through life and they're trying to hide their childhood. And so many of my friends, when they tell me, I'm like, I respect you that much more. You've been through that, and
Yes.
look what you've accomplished. Right?
Yes.
You had every excuse to go be in the gutter drinking every day.
That's right. That's right.
And I think someone like you find your motivation, go, I can help other people not to go through what I went through and all those years of struggling to figure it out. Now that you can coach people and help them. And, like you're helping all these other people who are coaching, like my neighbor, who's a sweetheart, like, that she got skills from you that she can help with other people coaching. And so it's amazing what you're doing, coaching other coaches. So you don't have to be the one coaching everyone, right? You pass on
Well,
this
I
wisdom.
can't, right? I can't.
You
So,
can.
I want, 10,000 more coaches, because the more people that know how to use these tools and share these tools, the more people are going to be supported, shifted, sovereign, saved. Amazing.
Yeah. And
Fearless.
and anyone who's struggling with forgiveness and grace for other people, there's so much in this book it's so critical to your health. When people are bitter and upset, I see it. I mean, you can see the ulcers and the headaches and
Yeah,
the neck pain and the shoulder. Everything gets worse with stress and anger and resentment. So being able to
that's
say,
right.
okay, and even having someone to vent with and talk to and go, here's why I'm frustrated, and being able to have a reasonable discussion. I think that's something as a society we've kind of lost that. So, Rhonda, where do people find you if they want to track you down and be coached by you or learn?
uh, fearlessliving.org, fearlessliving.org. And if you want, I have this exercise called Stretch, Risk, or Die that's going to help you understand how to start making changes in your life. Go to fearlessliving.org/risk, RISK, fearlessliving.org/risk, RISK. And then put your name and your email in, and you'll be able to get access to my Stretch, Risk, or Die course. And basically, it eliminates procrastination and will show you how to start making small changes and big changes in your life.
If all my patients went to you, my job would be so much easier, because so many people go, I'm just a
Yep.
procrastinator. I'm just lazy. I just can't think. I can't do this. I can't. Yeah, you
Yeah,
can.
that's all baloney baloney. That's
Yeah,
all
yeah,
baloney
and that's why I
baloney.
love
Yeah.
you. Cut through all the BS and you get down there. Go, okay, let's look at this, and
Yeah.
you write down what your fears are, what you want to be, where you're at now, and
That's
all
right.
these things, these skills that seem so crazy to people. When you do it, actually do it and put this down. For me, it's a challenge of where you're not living to where you're saying, hey, I want to represent this, but you're not living that way. Okay,
Yes.
write down what you've been doing for the last week, or every half an hour sometimes,
That's
and
right.
figure out, oh, am I wasting time? Am I just going on Twitter to escape for 5 minutes when I could be doing work so I can go home and see my family tonight? All those things where we just waste so much time because we're investing our time in things that aren't benefiting us or putting us on that path to escaping from our
Yeah.
struggles in life and stuff. So thank you so much for joining me. I
You're
was so
welcome.
the thing is that the hour goes by so fast. I look and I'm like, dang it, the clock's going to do a stop the clock. But Rhonda, it's such a pleasure. I know my neighbor Sue is going to be happy that we talked, and I'm having coffee with them tomorrow, as a matter of fact, before work.
Excellent.
So, anyways, I think it's what you're doing is amazing, and it's such an honor
Thank
to have
you.
you on. And people listening, look, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. Listen to these things. Take this. If you're at the end of your rope and hopeless, look, reach out to Rhonda, reach out to someone who can help you, try to get the nutrition right. We talk about that over and over on this
Nutrition.
podcast, and have that community, have someone you could reach out to. Don't be afraid to share who you are. People will love you that much more. Trust me. I see it all the time.
Yeah.
So don't live in that denial where, people are blackmailing you and you can't share yourself. So do it. Rhonda, do you have a closing word for us?
There's nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. And once you get that, life gets a heck of a lot easier.
Amen for me. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Rhonda, so
Brian.
much.
Be fearless.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We greatly appreciate your support. We would greatly appreciate a positive thumbs up on all of the platforms like iTunes and Spotify or wherever you're listening. And we just thank you for our Patreon supporters. We greatly appreciate your help in getting this message out. We think there's a lot of important information. And hopefully this helps you. Have a great day. And thank you for listening. And thank you for your support.